Shedeur Sanders just delivered a 5-word response that has the entire NFL world buzzing, and what he said might completely change how you see this young quarterback forever. After pulling off a historic upset against the Pittsburgh Steelers in one of the ugliest, rainiest, most brutal games of the season, a reporter walked up to Shedeur in the post-game press conference and said,
"There's something special going on here. Can you sort of describe what that is and how you feel about it?"
I think it's a group of guys that have been through a lot of things within themselves, and I think we all like banding together and being one. Through any situation, through like things that we can't control. We all agree.
"Congratulations, you just beat Aaron Rodgers." Now, most rookie quarterbacks would have puffed out their chest. Most young players in that moment would have talked about themselves, would have flexed on one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game. But Shedeur Sanders, he did something nobody expected. He paused, looked that reporter dead in the eye, and said 5 words that revealed absolutely everything about who this kid really is. "My team, we all beat him. That's it. No ego, no celebration, no victory lap." Just pure, unfiltered humility from a young man who has been through absolute hell this season and somehow came out the other side with his character completely intact. And what happened next in that press conference, it's going to make you see Shedeur Sanders in a completely different light, because this wasn't just a win. This was redemption. This was vindication. This was proof that no matter how hard they try to break you, no matter how much they sabotage you, no matter how deep they bury you on the depth,
they got the dub. I'll take that. The second thing is, when I look at it, I saw a plethora of very nice throws. I saw some things in terms of still having mobility and with his legs. If you take away, he had 2 really bad throws. But in general, I saw a really nice throw to Cedric Tillman. I saw some throws in the first half to Jerry Jeudy. I saw the throw, obviously Harold Fanning Jr. did a really good job of adjusting to that football. And you take a look at the offensive line play. It was atrocious. We couldn't run the football. But when it's all said and done, he did make enough plays to get the win. And if you take those 2 throws, and I'm not even going to say take them out, because I'm accounting full stop for those throws. But I think that you can't discount the fact that he came out there, did enough to get a game to win against the Steelers.
True greatness cannot be denied. Let me take you inside the most important game of Shedeur Sanders' young career. The rain was pouring down in Cleveland, and I mean pouring. The kind of weather that turns football games into mud-soaked wars of attrition where nothing comes easy and every single yard feels like a battle. The Pittsburgh Steelers rolled into town as heavy favorites. They were fighting for playoff positioning. They had one of the most dominant defenses in the AFC. And across the field stood a Cleveland Browns team with a 4-12 record, a dysfunctional organization, and a rookie quarterback that half the football world.
You guys are being able to right the ship next week.
Because we've done it all season. We've handled adversity well, and we had to play our best ball. We did, other than today.
Said didn't belong in the NFL. This was supposed to be a blowout. This was supposed to be Pittsburgh securing their playoff spot and Cleveland limping into the offseason with nothing but regret and questions about their future. But Shedeur Sanders had other plans. From the opening drive, you could see something different in his eyes. This wasn't the same quarterback who had been buried on the bench for weeks. This wasn't the same young man who had been told he wasn't ready, who had been forced to watch from the sidelines while knowing in his heart that he was supposed to be out there dominating. This was a player on a mission. Shedeur went 12 of 17 in the first half alone, 163 yards, 1 touchdown, throwing absolute darts in conditions that would have broken most quarterbacks. The rain was sideways, the wind was howling. And there was Shedeur Sanders, standing tall in the pocket, delivering strikes to his receivers like he'd been doing this his entire life. When the final whistle blew, the scoreboard read Browns 10, Steelers 6. One of the ugliest, most defensive, most hard-fought games you'll ever see. But for Cleveland, for those long-suffering Browns fans who have been waiting for anything to believe in, this was beautiful. This was everything. And for Shedeur Sanders, this was his first home win in a Cleveland Browns uniform. When he walked into that post-game press conference, you could see the emotion on his face. This wasn't the cocky, confident quarterback that the media loves to paint him as. This was a young man who had just achieved something he'd been desperately wanting, something that had been taken from him over and over again. A reporter asked him how it felt to finally get that first home win in front of the Browns faithful. And Shedeur's response was pure emotion. "Yeah, no, it's extremely exciting to get the win at home for sure. I've been needing to win at home for a minute, so that's what's good. That's what I'm excited for, that we brought that feeling back in this place. You hear that? We brought that feeling back in this place. Not I brought that feeling back. Not I finally got my win. This kid is thinking about the fans. He's thinking about the organization. He's thinking about the city of Cleveland that has been starving for hope. And then came the moment that changed everything. A reporter walked up to Shedeur with a smile and said those words. "Congratulations, you just beat Aaron Rodgers." Now let me give you some context here. Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, 4-time MVP, Super Bowl champion, a first-ballot Hall of Famer who has been dominating this league since before Shedeur Sanders was in middle school. And earlier this week, Rodgers himself had spoken publicly about Shedeur. He said that every NFL team is watching what's happening in Cleveland. He talked about Shedeur's intangibles, his poise under pressure, the way he's handling unprecedented adversity with the kind of maturity that you rarely see from veterans, let alone rookies. Aaron Rodgers, who knows exactly what it's like to deal with dysfunctional organizations and coaching staffs that don't have your back, was essentially co-signing Shedeur Sanders as a legitimate franchise quarterback. That's massive. That's a stamp of approval from football royalty. So when that reporter congratulated
I'm so proud of the guys throughout the whole year. Proud of them today. It's a hell of a deal being able to have the opportunity to play for the 1 seed, and these guys have earned it. So we got to go to bed early and get ready to come back because we found out it's Saturday, so it's going to happen soon.
Shedeur on beating Aaron Rodgers. This was the perfect opportunity for a young quarterback to flex, to talk himself up, to take a victory lap against one of the greatest to ever do it. But Shedeur didn't take the bait. "My team, we all beat him." 5 words. That's all it took to reveal the kind of leader Shedeur Sanders truly is. He didn't claim individual credit. He didn't compare himself to a legend. He immediately, instinctively redirected all the praise to his teammates, the offensive line that's been decimated by injuries, the defense that pitched a near shutout against a playoff contending offense, the kicker who's been clutch when it mattered most. Every single person in that locker room, that's franchise quarterback mentality. That's the kind of selflessness that builds championship cultures. That's the Shedeur Sanders the mainstream media doesn't want you to see. But here's what makes this moment even more powerful. You have to understand what Shedeur has been through to get here. This young man was drafted in the 5th round when everyone knew he had first-round talent. He walked into a Cleveland Browns organization that, according to multiple reports, never wanted him to succeed. Head coach Kevin Stefanski buried him on the depth chart. They started other quarterbacks. They made Shedeur wait, and wait, and wait some more. And during that time, something happened to Shedeur Sanders that nobody talks about. The mental warfare started breaking him down. In that same post-game press conference, a reporter asked Shedeur what advice he would give himself from day one if he could go back, and his answer was absolutely heartbreaking. "I would say definitely know you're supposed to be out there dominating. I think what you kind of got to understand also, like sitting and everything like that and just watching, it's a mental thing. So it's like, dang, you start questioning a lot of things, you know. And then sometimes, like me before the game and stuff, I got to have a lot of built-up anger within myself because that's why I got to play with that fire, with that different emotion within me. Let that sink in for a moment." Shedeur Sanders, a kid who has been confident his entire life, who was raised by one of the greatest athletes of all time, who has elite talent and unshakable self-belief, admitted that being benched, being told he wasn't ready, being forced to watch from the sidelines made him start questioning himself. That's what the sabotage accomplished. That's what happens when a coach systematically tries to break a player's spirit instead of building him up. It got into Shedeur's head. It made him doubt. It made him angry, and now before every single game, Shedeur has to build up that anger just to get himself in the right mental space to go out and dominate. That's not normal. That's not healthy. That's trauma response. That's what happens when the people who are supposed to support you are actively working against you. But here's the beautiful part, and this is where Shedeur's character truly shines through. He's using that anger as fuel. He's channeling it into his performance. He's not
Ravens. The Ravens did their part on Saturday night. They beat the Packers, but they needed a Steelers loss to set up a Week 18 showdown for the AFC North, and Cleveland delivers in a 10-6 ugly game, maybe one of the ugliest games I have ever seen. Cleveland scores 10 points early, doesn't score again, but Pittsburgh can't do anything against that Cleveland defense, and I know that Ravens players and coaches sent out their well wishes to the Browns last night and early in this morning to hopefully will the Browns to a victory, and they did that, so now the Ravens will get to go to Pittsburgh to play for the division in Week 18. Winner takes the division, goes to the playoffs. Loser goes home. Huge stakes for a Ravens team that looked like they were out of it, and now they again control their own destiny. So for more on the Ravens and this, be sure to check out the Locked On Ravens podcast.
Letting it destroy him. He's letting it drive him. When you go out there the first time, I think it's more like, dang, this dude over there, they cool. But then when you're actually out there, you're like, I don't care who it is. I'm trying to dominate him. That's the mentality of a killer. That's the mentality of a champion. And despite everything they've done to break this kid, they haven't succeeded. If anything, they've made him stronger. Now let me tell you about something that happened before this game that didn't make any headlines, but absolutely should have. At 6:30 in the morning on game day, Shedeur Sanders picked up his phone and called Snoop Dogg. Yes, that's Snoop Dogg. the legendary rapper, entrepreneur, and cultural icon who has become one of Shedeur's biggest supporters. Snoop had visited Brown's training camp earlier in the season, and the two of them formed an instant connection. Shedeur explained it in the press conference with the most genuine, heartwarming detail. I think I had a missed call from him or a text, something, I don't know. Then I just called him when I woke up, like 6:30. Called him. I'm like, dang bro, why you still up? And he was like, bro, I'm excited, bro. He was excited. They just got the win. And he definitely had words of encouragement and stuff for me. But here's the part that really got emotional. Shedeur talked about their deeper connection, about conversations they've had about God, about divine purpose, about why Snoop feels like he was sent to encourage this young quarterback at exactly the right moment. I think because I'm always smiling and he's always smiling. I think that's what it is. And then we just talk, and just had a conversation about God and why he feels like he was sent here, Just to give me them words of encouragement to keep me going and understand his story and understand how things panned out for him also. So he always told me, be ready. And anytime I talk to him, he's always positive. A conversation about God and divine purpose. Do you understand how rare it is for a 22-year-old professional athlete to talk like this, to have this level of spiritual awareness? To recognize that the connections he's making, the adversity he's facing, the journey he's on, it's all preparing him for something greater. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a football player. He's a young man who understands that everything happening to him right now has a purpose. And instead of becoming bitter, instead of lashing out, instead of playing the victim, he's choosing to stay positive, to speak life into others, to be a light in a situation that could easily turn dark. And speaking of speaking life into others, let me tell you about Andre Schmidt. Schmidt is the Browns kicker who struggled mightily early in the season. He was missing kicks.
Felt good getting the win overall, and especially the team we won against. I think it's bittersweet because I feel like offense, we got to do our part. I got to do my part, a little bit more. We can't be happy with only 10 points.
Getting crushed by fans on social media, getting destroyed by the media. He was questioning whether he even belonged in the NFL anymore. He was in a dark, dark place. And Shedeur Sanders, who was dealing with his own struggles, his own sabotage, his own mental warfare, took the time to pull this man aside and have a real conversation with him. When a reporter asked Shedeur about his connection with Schmidt, his response hit different. Yeah, I'll say just the relationship with Andre for sure. We had a conversation, when he was going through it, and since then it's been nothing but up. So I'm very happy that he was able to get out that hole that he was in and that he's able to see the other side of things. I think that's the only thing I think about whenever I look at him, whenever I see him. I'm just excited. I'm just happy that he was able to see the other side of things. You understand what Shedeur did there. He didn't talk to Schmidt as a quarterback to a kicker. He didn't talk to him as a star to a role player. He talked to him as one human being to another who understands what it's like to be in a dark place and needs someone to remind you that you're better than your worst moment. That's the kind of stuff that doesn't show up in box scores. That's the kind of leadership that builds championship cultures. And that's exactly what Shedeur Sanders is doing in Cleveland, even though the people in charge have been trying to stop him from day one. When another reporter asked Shedeur about the close-knit bond and brotherhood on this football team despite the disappointing season, his answer revealed so much about who he is. I think it's a group of guys that's been through a lot of things within themselves. And I think we all like banding together and being one, through any situation, through things that we can't control. We all agree with a lot of things, and I think we're the cornerstone of this team. A group of guys that's been through a lot of things within themselves. Man, that's deep. Shedeur recognizes that everyone on that roster is dealing with their own struggles, their own demons, their own challenges. And instead of letting that divide them, they're using it to unify them. They're becoming brothers forged in adversity. That's the kind of locker room culture that wins championships. That's the kind of foundation you build dynasties on. And it's all happening under the leadership of a rookie 5th-round pick who wasn't supposed to be ready, who was sabotaged at every turn, but who refused to let the hate break him. Now here's why this win matters beyond just the W in the standings. By beating the Steelers, the Browns not only kept their own slim playoff hopes alive, but they also helped the Baltimore Ravens secure their spot in the postseason. The Ravens did their part on Saturday night, beating the Packers, but they needed a Steelers loss to set up a Week 18 showdown for the AFC North, and Cleveland delivered. So now you've got a situation where Shedeur Sanders could potentially play spoiler 2 weeks in a row. The Browns play the Ravens next week. Winner takes the division. Loser goes home. Massive stakes for everyone involved. If Shedeur goes out there and beats Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in a game that actually matters for playoff implications, there's no way, absolutely no way, the Browns can justify moving on from him in the offseason. That would be vindication. That would be proof beyond any shadow of a doubt that Shedeur Sanders is the future of this franchise. Every GM in the league is watching. Every scout is taking notes. Every coach is paying attention to how this young man handles himself under the brightest lights. And so far, he's been nothing short of remarkable. From the 6:30 in the morning phone call with Snoop Dogg to his humble response about beating Aaron Rodgers to his emotional support of Andre Schmidt to his raw admission about building up anger just to overcome the mental warfare of being benched. This wasn't just a post-game press conference. This was a window into the soul of a young man who's been carrying weight that nobody should have to carry, and he's doing it with grace, with maturity. An unshakable belief that he's destined for greatness. My team, we all beat him. 5 words that define a franchise quarterback. 5 words that reveal character you can't teach. 5 words that should terrify every defensive coordinator who has to face this kid for the next 15 years. Shedeur Sanders is changing the culture in Cleveland, one game at a time. And no amount of sabotage, no amount of doubt, no amount of hate is going to stop him. The redemption arc isn't complete yet. But after what we saw against Pittsburgh, after that historic first home win, after that masterful display of leadership and humility, it's only a matter of time. The NFL better be ready, because Shedeur Sanders certainly is. If you want more real stories about what's actually happening with Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland, the leadership he's building, and the redemption arc that's unfolding before our eyes, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're bringing you the truth every single day. Let's ride with number 2.